Designer Note Subject 8. G-Shock Cross Gundam Project Lug Adapter Modifications Part 2. We're adding some red accents for these simulated warning lights that are typically seen on aircraft wings and also found in the Gundam series. It's also time to add the photo-etched parts on the hinge. This metallic part will reflect the light nicely in contrast to the matte finish of the other surfaces of the watch. It is recommended to use hobby cement for these photo-etched parts, but some quick dry glue will also suffice. Test fitting number 4. This project was posted in the G-Shock Collectors Facebook group, and some remarked that the lugs appear too bulky. It actually is, and I like it that way. But for the next projects, we will aim for a slimmer profile. Time to cut the 1/550 scale dendrobium parts. Also had to remove some of the pegs and flatten it a bit. Now adding more glue to the adapter. We need to be careful not to add too much to lessen the areas to sand. Here's the adapter with some miliput putty all over. We're going to let this sit for 24 hours. After that, we'll shave off the excess material and sand it to smooth. After some sanding and filing, much of the putty was removed, and even some paint from the previous modeling project in the Gunpla parts. Primer was added to the adapter. While we wait for the primer to dry, we start cutting the plastic parts for the scratch built areas. These parts from the 00 Gundam will be bonded together to form a sensor unit. In the Gundam series, the mobile suits or robots typically have an assortment of sensors on the head and around the mobile suits. These gather important information for the pilot, similar to real-life tanks and aircrafts for the military. We'll cut off some of the protruding parts in the bottom half of this piece. This will form a flat surface to stick to the adapter. Back to the scratch building parts. Cutting the corners of these parts can help with the visual interest and avoid being a boring rectangular shape. Notches were also added using our 2.5mm hobby chisel. Test fitting the three parts together. Next, the primer is stripped away for the parts where the plastic will have contact on the adapter. Glue is applied on these exposed parts. The same is done on the other side. After the bond is secure, some sanding was needed to erase the seams. Silver paint is then applied. After the silver paint has dried, the white parts were masked off and painted. The same process is repeated for the sensor unit. The other photo etched parts were cut off to be used on the silver parts of the build. This will help add a different sheen versus to the silver's shimmer. It will also add a different layer compared to the plastic that we're applying. Some black outlines were added to further highlight the contrast. This panel layering is also typically found in top builds of Gunpla. Test fitting with the sensor unit. After painting and installing the sensor unit, a clear gap is seen exposing the innards of the plastic. We'll cover that with a small red plastic. The adapter is then installed to the watch, and the overall result is a unique DW5600 unlike any other. To finish off this phase of the build, we applied the decals to both adapters. I used the decals from the 00 Gundam and carefully chose the best one that would suit the area. I prefer water slide decals. It's easy to apply, just soak them in water, and also very adjustable right after the application. For the top area, we will use these description markings. For the sensor, I added a warning arrow where you typically would hit your hand or your watch on a desk or while in use. For the sides, we added some black warning arrows where the straps would go through. After applying all the decals, a matte clear coat is applied on the adapters, protecting the paint and the decals from everyday wear. It's now time to take a long break as we wait for the vessels to arrive and work on the final phase of this build.